What interests me is how nothing that happens in our culture now is exempted from this set of oppositionalist critiques where you can automatically understand which perspective a person will take based on their previous alliances. How did we get in this position? How did we arrive at a point where people would support something based on a kind of tribal allegiance rather than an objective sense of right and wrong?
There's an interesting theory called Habermas discourse theory, which is a theory of communicative action that rests on the idea that social order ultimately depends on the capacity of actors to recognize the intersubjective validity of the different claims on which social cooperation depends. So, in the light of the Oscars, this is a excellent example of what this theory is hypothesizing. And the fact that we have the ability of speech and the freedom to just use speech however we direct it to. And that's where we can start going back and looking at where the exact moment is that led us to this circumstance, essentially, where, like you said, we seem to be more focused on the light of the allegiance that we have to one tribe versus other tribes. And you said it beautifully. It surpasses just the concept of right and wrong, good and evil. And so my explanation is essentially the beginning. It all comes from the ideas that form in our universe here that are derived not by the words specifically in scriptures, but by the idea that humans have already created based on these words that take human consciousness past a couple steps to just grasping the true knowledge of good and evil that this book, this scripture teaches. Not only the Holy Bible, but the Quran, which is another great example of parallel universes, multiverses. The Quran and the Holy Bible essentially are two universes, two stories. And the amazing part is that through the story, they connect. And it goes back into this one, like, crazy, it's amazing when you figure out just the connecting point of it. And then the story goes, and then we get to this point where now it's not parallel universes, but we are standing parallel from each other in the same universe, as if that universe is worse than this universe, or vice versa. And so what I've always been interested in is how we individually define good from evil. In chapter 1 of Genesis, God creates light. Why? Because the earth was void, without form. Because darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering above the waters. You know, it's just like all those words, what does that mean? But if you just look and just focus on each word rather than just skip past to the next one where it says, and then God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Okay, so here's the definition from God. God said light is good. And he separated the light from the darkness. He didn't say darkness is evil. He just separated light from darkness. And he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. He didn't call night evil either. He just said, okay, light is day, darkness is night. Asterisk, light is good. That doesn't mean this is that yet. Then we go through the rest of the week of creation on day 6, where he creates man in the image of God. And the word is, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. And God created man in his image. He created both male and female. So this is where it's just like the words just change. And this is where allegiances begin to form. Okay? Whenever there's just like one, you can't have any other allegiance because there's no other choice. But then when you separate this and now there's light and dark, then you have a choice. Okay? Like if you're finding yourself on one side, you have a choice to change sides or whatever. But essentially now you have allegiances. And the concept of tribes even generates from this book. But it all comes from separation. So, again, the separation from good and evil based on one's allegiance or beliefs or personal experiences. We can predict exactly or just understand why they chose to side as this being good as opposed to this possibly also being good. Instead of that option, we just consciously skip a step and just say, yes, if I am on this side is good, that automatically means that side is not good. But that's not the case. All we're necessarily saying is, okay, this is the light, and that's darkness to me. And then on that side, we're darkness, and they're light. That's what we have to understand. It's just, okay, we have a different perception of what's good here, what's dark. But then we have a whole other group who's like, hey, no, that was terrible. It's like, we're not even talking about the idea of terrible, evil, bad. It's just, we're separating what's good from the dark, okay? What's good from this? So what did each person do good? Okay? I mean, here's the thing where Will Smith is critiqued or criticized for acting out violently against Chris Rock. violently is it's the furthest word that I would choose to define what I saw that as. And what I just saw was essentially a man get pimp slapped by another man. And it happened to be two men who were in the public eye, who are real big figures, who are both dark-skinned Americans, so we can't side with that. Like, oh, here's one dark-skinned man slapping a white-skinned man, or a white-skinned man slapping a... It's just, we don't have that option, okay? So now it's just, this was violent. Was it violent? I mean, this is Will Smith. This is Ali. Ali could destroy Chris Rock. So the fact that when he admits that he acted out of impulse, and even acting out of impulse in the passion of the crime, he still had the conscious light to just slap him like an actor. Like, I was just like, was this staged? Because I don't know. I was like, dang, I don't know if Will Smith was like seriously trying to like slap him to hurt him. Then Chris Rock took that. So where the conspiracy is like, was this staged? Was this all set up? I can go with that light, but then I just stop and I say, look, they're both actors, so maybe that's what kept Will Smith from truly acting out violently in the front of the public eye and just knocking Chris out. Like, that would have been horrific. I mean, it would have been a different problem that we'd be discussing. I mean, if that happened and then maybe Jim Carrey says, that's why I'm suing the state of California for whatever amount of money, that light right there is more what I'm questioning. That's more what I'm interested in. Like, why did Jim Carrey, who is somebody who I personally hold in the highest honor along with like Will Smith, like in my life, they are like equals. And so it was like a very big moment for me to have these two figures kind of conflicting with each other. And so now I'm sitting here asking myself, who do I think is good? And so like, I would love to hear more on like why Jim Carrey feels, I mean, he just says this is embedded in history forever. But there are videos on YouTube that are far more destructive than this. And I think that in that light, that constitutes some kind of explanation, at least for me, on why one of my heroes would be so opposed to this action and not see it the way that I just kind of see it. It's just like, hey, look, it was what it is. And Will Smith said it when he was accepting his award, just, you know, sometimes art imitates life, and, you know, and he's all emotional. And then you hear critics like Judge Janine saying like, I don't know, like what kind of person just like goes from all happy and all like, and then like angry and then violent and then back and then blah and then crying and then like dancing. Like, obviously this guy's got some mental issues. And this is the problem. This is where the culture war comes in. This is where gender queer theory is coming into the forefront. Because behind gender queer theory is this idea that the minute we define something as normal and abnormal, we have a huge, huge problem. And that is why we are here, is because we started separating good and evil as normal and crazy, not normal, abnormal, and blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?